I was outside with my dog. It was late evening and a nice breeze was blowing despite how hot the day had been. Joe loved to go outside, but the summer had been so torrid until today that he couldn't stand more than 30 minutes walking around. Normally our walks would go on for hours. As I said, he loves being outside. This late, however, we just stay in the garden in front of the house since it gets really dark and there's no street lighting where I live. So Joe would lie down on the grass, occasionally snapping at ants or other insects flying around. He had taken this bad habit of eating flies. Don't know if he likes the challenge of catching them or the taste. I don't want to know. Anyway, I'm getting a bit off track. Point is that evening something was off about Joe. Instead of lying down and play, he just kept staring at the stairs that lead to the front entrance, his ears straight up in the air. He was usually like that when he was alert about something, but it had never happened when we were home. I couldn't see anything since the outside lights were being kept off to avoid attracting wasps. The only illumination was faint, provided by the moon hanging high in the sky. Sometimes it would be just in the right place so that it wasn't completely dark. The meager lighting projected the shadow of the balcony on the far wall lining the stairs. Still, I couldn't make anything out, nothing that looked like it wasn't supposed to be there. Then I noticed a larger shadow along the wall, right at the corner of the balcony railing shadow. At first I just thought it was a vase placed on the balcony, but that couldn't be. The shadow was much thicker than it was supposed to compared to everything else around it, and when I looked up there was no vase to be seen. That freaked me out a bit, but I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a trick of the light, maybe I was tired. Or maybe there was really something there. No. Don't freak out. It's nothing. Just don't look at it. No sooner had I said that. I swear, it moved. Whatever it was, it moved as soon as it thought I was going to turn my back on it. It was just for a moment, a jerking sort of motion, and now it was still again. For a minute I was frozen staring at it. It was such a long minute. I think Joe growling is what brought me back to reality. Had he been growling before? I needed to move, quick. I ran for the entrance. Thankfully the door was already open. I had to drag Joe behind me, but fear and adrenaline barely made me notice. I swung the door shut and went for the open window. I had to lean outside to grab the shutters and close them. That's why I saw them. The figure or shadow or whatever was looking at me. Where only dark should have been, there was a pair of slits pointed straight at me, emanating their own light. Once again panic surged and I slammed the shutters together, fumbling with the hinge to close it. I ran for the other open window in the adjacent room, thankfully the only other one. After, I took refuge in my bedroom, with Joe, who has been barking non-stop since we got back inside. He especially barks at the window in my room. My eyes keep going back and forth between the window and the door to my bedroom. I don't think I'm going to be able to sleep. Oh, no! I left the keys outside. I made the mistake of looking in my girlfriend's closet one day. That's when I found the creepy little handmade dolls. They were strange, yeah, but I didn't want to judge prematurely. Then I noticed that they had names written on them, names of her ex-boyfriends. That put me in sort of a rough position. I didn't really care about those guys that dated Becca before me. They were probably jerks anyways. Maybe she had some resentment towards them. She had a right to that. These dolls, though, had clearly been stabbed, burnt, twisted, and torn in all kinds of ways. It started to bother me more and more. Things were getting pretty serious. I met her parents. We had dinner over at their house. If I was going to be life partners with Becca, we needed to talk about the dolls. I brought it up one quiet evening. She got defensive right away. "What were you doing going through my stuff?" she yelled. It was a sensitive topic, but I kept calm and explained my point of view. I wasn't accusing her of anything. I wasn't passing judgment. I was just asking because I was curious. She calmed down after her initial outburst, and eventually she opened up about it. "They're effigies," she explained. Some of my exes were real assholes, and they put me through so much emotional pain that I feel like it's only fair that I make them feel pain in return. I shivered. My grandma taught me how to make them. All I need is a lock of their hair, and I can make the effigy and perform the ritual to link it to their bodies. Then, when I hurt the doll, I hurt the person. I asked some more questions, but I couldn't hold back my thoughts any longer. It's terrible that these men hurt you. I get that, but that doesn't make it right for you to do this. Her expression dropped, and her face twisted in rage. Then she screamed at me. How dare I say that? How dare I? We delved into a heated argument. You're hurting other people to make yourself feel better. That's what children do. Then she threw a book at my head. I ended up running out of the house. Then, I went home and promptly drank half a bottle of whiskey to drown my feelings. Then I waited for the inevitable to happen. The next morning, I heard the news. Poor Becca's dad had died of a heart attack. I was sad that he had to die, but it had to be done. She needed to learn a lesson. You shouldn't hurt people just because they hurt you. So don't secretly take a clipping of your boyfriend's hair in case things go sideways. And even if you do, don't hide it in such an obvious place. It makes it too easy to switch out his hair with your dad's. The story I'm about to tell is a bit long due to the many sinister events that took place in that place, but I'll try to summarize it as much as possible. When I was 19, my dad decided to buy an apartment that was still under construction, so we had to live in a rented house located in the Santa Barbara neighborhood in Krishima. The house was narrow and long, without a garage or side spaces, squeezed between two other residences. That year, I was studying medicine in college, had classes all day, and usually left home at 6:30 in the morning, only to return around 11 at night, exhausted and eager to go straight to bed. The house had a living room and a dining room. After these rooms, there was a hallway where my parents' bedroom, a ventilation area, the bedroom I shared with my younger sister, a bathroom, the kitchen, my two brothers' bedroom, a laundry room, and a backyard with some trees were located. The two bedrooms in the hallway had windows that opened to the ventilation area since the house had no side spaces. One night, I was already asleep, exhausted, when my sister woke me up, saying she heard strange noises in the kitchen and asked me to go with her to check what was going on. In the kitchen, there was an awning window high on the wall, close to the neighbor's yard, where we sometimes saw a kitten looking into our house, likely attracted by the smell of food. I decided to go with her, and as we were approaching the bathroom, I had a bad feeling. I pulled my sister back, and we returned to our room. At that exact moment, we heard a very loud noise in the kitchen, as if the refrigerator had been turned over and all the water bottles inside it had broken upon hitting the floor. Instantly, I thought a burglar had entered the house after breaking the awning window where the neighbor's kitten used to look into the kitchen. My dad woke up from the noise and went ahead to see what had happened. My mom, my siblings, and I followed him and were surprised to see what had occurred. My mom's old aluminum pot rack, with hooks for various pots, was overturned on the floor. All the pots were also on the floor, but stacked inside each other. There were also several glasses broken in half, but on the counter. Inside the glasses were all their shards. There wasn't a single piece of glass on the counter or the floor. We were scared and didn't know what had happened. After some time cleaning up the mess, we went back to sleep. From then on, I was scared to live in that house. However, it had the advantage of being close to my aunt's houses, my mom's older sisters. There was also the issue of returning the property before the rental contract ended, which would result in a fine. And there were only a few months left before our new apartment would be ready. For all these reasons, we continued living there. About a month or two later, it was a Saturday afternoon, and I was in the ventilation area, tending to the numerous plants I cultivated there. That was my hobby at the time. Suddenly, I felt an extremely negative energy, a terrible fear out of nowhere, the kind that sends chills from your neck down to your feet. At that moment, I saw an old man's spirit passing through the hallway, clearly about 70-something years old, very thin and of medium height, wearing a white long-sleeved shirt and loose light blue pants, both faded and worn. I I was so terrified that I jumped through the window into my parents' bedroom and started screaming for help. Given what had recently happened in the house and all the supernatural experiences I had had, my parents came to my aid and tried to calm me down, asking for patience since we would move to the new apartment in a few months. With no alternative, I agreed to continue living there. July came, and our family went to our summer house at Rinko Beach to enjoy the summer, as we always did. Only my dad and my older brother stayed in the house. My dad, already retired, worked in Krishima from Monday to Friday. It was a part-time job just to keep busy, as he said, being used to working since he was 18. My brother was studying civil engineering in college and was on vacation but didn't like the hustle and bustle of the beach house. He preferred to stay quietly in Krishima, serving as a driver for my dad, who had poor vision due to his age. It was a Monday afternoon in a week in July. Only my dad and my older brother were in the house. Around 4 p.m., my dad asked my brother to go to the bakery on the corner to buy some bread. At that moment, my dad went to the kitchen to make some coffee and set the table for a snack since they were alone in the house with no one to help them. With the coffee ready and the table set, my dad started washing the dishes. A few minutes later, he heard the front door open and close. Moments later, he heard footsteps as if someone was walking from the living room to the kitchen. Believing it was my brother returning with the bread he had gone to buy at the bakery, my dad turned to the hallway and said, "Let's have a snack, son." However, when he looked, there was no one there. At that moment, my dad got scared, remembering what had already happened in that house, and immediately went to the neighbor's house, where he was warmly welcomed by the neighbor, a friendly person, while waiting for my brother's return. In conversation with the neighbor, my dad told him everything strange that had happened in that house in the few months we lived there. He described the spirit of the old man I had seen in the hallway, as I had already told him. Perplexed, the neighbor told my dad that the description matched perfectly with the previous owner of that house, who had passed away a few years ago. He added that in life, the man was excessively materialistic and very attached to that house, which he didn't want to share with his heirs. After that event, my family returned to that house at the beginning of August only to move to another residence. From then on, we lived in peace until we moved to the new apartment. Since then, I have avoided passing by that house. Over the years, I had to pass by it 2 or 3 times, but I would bless myself and look to the other side of the street to avoid the risk of seeing that evil spirit again, which had frightened us so much. Curious, I researched on Google today and discovered that the house is now a commercial point. It has been turned into an auto parts store. I believe that all the people who lived there after us also fled, terrified by the nefarious manifestations of that evil spirit.